I'm Ashley.
And I'm Brady.
And we are the Cinema Twins, broadcasting live from Georgia College on WGUR 95.3 The Noise. Hello, Georgia College. Brady and Ashley are back with more Cinema Twins this semester. We hope everyone's semester is going great so far. We're excited to talk about some more movies with you guys this semester. So this show is going to be a little different from our shows last semester just because we're going to simply start off with our top 10 list from 2015 of our favorite movies. And then we'll probably talk about the Oscars a little bit because that's obviously a big topic in our movie world. All right. Ashley, tell our audience how we're going to go about the top 10.
Okay, so the top 10 is simple and... Well, actually, it wasn't simple. It was really, really hard to make because it was a pretty good year in movies. You know, we got some really good movies, some not so great ones, but it was good. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go with my 10 through 6. Then Brady's gonna go her 10 through 6. I'm gonna go 5 through 2. Brady's gonna go 5 through 2, and then we're both gonna unveil our number ones. And I will spoiler alert. I'll say our lists are pretty different. So it's not going to be like the exact same. Even though we are twins, we have different tastes sometimes.
But the lists are also very similar. I mean, there are similar movies on the list, so they're not completely different movies either. But there is some differing in opinion on where some of these movies go on our lists. I know there were a few movies this year that I thought were some of the best of the year that you didn't care for too much. So,
one movie that I didn't care for.
I guess that's true. But we're going to go ahead and get into our 10 through 6. All right, Ashley, go ahead with yours. What is your number 10 of 2015?
Okay, so when I started off making this list, there were a few that I really, really, really wanted to get in there, and I couldn't, so I'm going to start with my honorable mentions. So my honorable mentions for 2015 were Inside Out, The Gift, Trainwreck, Everest, Room, It Follows, and this one hurt me the most, Dope. I really, really loved Dope, and I wanted to get in there so bad, but I just couldn't. It almost made it, though. If you haven't seen Dope, like, seriously, go out and see it. It's amazing. And it's hilarious. And it's a great coming-of-age story, which I love. Okay, so, gonna go right into it. My number 10 is The Big Short. I saw this movie, like, a couple of weeks ago, and as it started, I was like, somebody saw The Wolf of Wall Street. But then as the movie goes on, it takes this whole different tone. Although it is funny, it ends up different than The Wolf of Wall Street. It's similar, like you could really honestly do a really interesting comparison between The Big Short and The Wolf of Wall Street and how the rich's lives play out when they make mistakes and how the poor's life play out when they make mistakes. And it's really interesting. I loved the direction by Adam McKay. It was very different than anything he's done before. I am not a fan of Anchorman or any of those that he's done, but I loved The Big Short, and I was really happy to see him in the nominations for Best Director.
Now, I do like Anchorman. I like some of those more sillier comedies than you do. Like, you don't typically like those. I will go for them. They're a fun, shove popcorn in my face kind of movie. However, I do want to talk about The Big Short because The Big Short is not on my list. And it is in my honorable mentions. But I will say that I definitely agree about the comparison between The Wolf of Wall Street would be very interesting because particularly the endings of the two movies really set them apart. And I would like to say I agree about Adam McKay's direction also. He was nominated, correct? I'm glad he was nominated because... I would have put someone else in there. But
Ridley Scott.
I am glad that he's in there simply because...
We'll talk about the Oscars. Sorry, I was going to say somebody else. But
yeah, we'll talk about the Oscars in a minute. But I do like how with his direction, he took a very hard topic to understand. That is this crazy, like, housing market and all the
which goes over my head.
yes,
normally,
all the
so-
economics that go into it. It's hard to make that a mass appeal movie, but he was managed to do that by using pop culture references to explain them. Like, he would take something complicated and then someone would look into the camera, break the fourth wall, and be like, here's so and so to explain it, and it'd be like a famous person and they would be doing something different.
Yeah, and that was one of my favorite things about it, like, because it is based off of a book called The Big Short, I think, and it's based off of the true story, obviously, and, like, I loved whenever they would look at the camera and they would go, that's not actually how it happened, but this was better for the movie, or something like that. They'll say little things like that during the film. It was so clever, and it didn't take me out of it. It, like, put me more in the film. I just really loved it, but, yeah, that was my number 10. And you talked about shoving popcorn in your face, Brady. My number 9 is Mad Max Fury Road.
That low on your
Yeah.
list?
I know. It's the spectacle of the film was unbelievable, and nobody loves a good director more than me. And George Miller, bless you, sir. He killed it directing this movie with the eye tracing and everything that had to go into directing this film. It is insane, and I cannot believe that someone was actually able to pull it off, and I loved it so, so much. But for me, it's just, you gotta go substance over style, and it was missing a lot of that substance for me, even though I still loved it. So that's why it's my number 9. And I know it's on your list, so we'll
Yes,
get to it.
I will talk about that quite a bit later, actually. So why don't you go ahead and give us your number 8?
Okay, number 8, a lot of people that I've seen have been putting this a lot higher on their lists, but I just couldn't do it. Star Wars The Force Awakens for my number 8. I loved this film. I thought that J.J. Abrams he did a fantastic job, like, bringing in the new characters and, like, kind of not ushering out the old, but giving them a new spin, you know, like, and putting them in this new story, which I loved. I understand people's criticisms that it does play off of a lot of the same beats that A New Hope does, but I loved it. I thought that it needed that in order for, like, the new generation of fans who, when they're watching this, they're going to be like, oh, I need to go back and see what happened, because I know tons of people who have not seen any of the Star Wars movies that saw The Force Awakens and loved it. So I think they're really going to go back and watch it. It's going to be fantastic.
I agree, and I think that structure fits with the theme of Star Wars and that movie and all the movies in general. It's the hero's journey. We actually were talking about this in one of my classes the other day, is the hero's journey is very kind of typical, but it works. It just works for stories, and it worked for A New Hope, and it worked for The Force Awakens.
And I love all the new characters. Rey, Poe, Finn. I cannot wait to see the next ones with these characters. They're so great. But I guess moving on to my number 7. I went back and forth with with all of these really so much, but 7, I had to go Ex Machina. And I loved Ex Machina. I saw it in the theaters. I was one of the only people that did. I saw it at the very beginning of the year in February, and it stuck with me all year. It got under your skin, and just with the pairing of Domhnall Gleeson and Oscar Isaac, oh gosh, I just loved them. I loved Alicia Vikander in this movie. I thought that, I haven't seen The Danish Girl, but I thought she should have gotten nominated for Ex Machina. I don't know, but I need to see The Danish Girl. But this movie was unbelievable, and I loved it. The story was mind-blowing, and mind-blowing in the subtlest way. Like,
yeah, you're not screaming like you're screaming internally when you are watching this film, because like you said, it gets under your skin, and honestly, it creeped me out. But I'll be talking about it more, so why don't you go ahead with your number 6?
Number 6 is a movie that I don't think a lot of people saw. I saw it twice. But it's Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. I read this book whenever I heard about it when it was going through the Sundance circuit, and I read the book just to see what it was about, because I heard the movie described as The Fault in Our Stars if it was directed by Wes Anderson. And that really caught me. And I was like, oh my goodness, that sounds like something I need to see. So I read the book, loved the book. And then when the movie came out, I drug our mom to go see it. And it was beautiful. It was a love letter to film and filmmaking and just such a sweet story with these characters that felt so authentic. Like, they feel like characters, but they feel like authentic characters and not somebody that you feel like you could be this kid walking through the high school, and it was just beautifully shot. I loved this movie. So I love a coming of age. I love sad stuff. It can make me cry. Then good. So
yeah, it was a fantastic movie, and I believe we've actually covered it on the Cinema Twins before.
We did, but still nobody's seen it.
You can go on YouTube and check out on one of our earlier episodes to hear more about me and Earl and the Dying Girl. But right now it is my turn for my 10 through 6 for top 10 movies of 2015. Now, I do have honorable mentions as well. Ashley said Inside Out. I'd like to add Creed. I think Creed was fantastic. I know Ashley hasn't gotten a chance to see Creed yet, which is
so mad. I love Ryan Coogler. I want to see it.
It's very unfortunate. Creed is fantastic. It's directed by Ryan Coogler, who directed Fruitvale Station, which we have also discussed on an earlier episode of the Cinema Twins.
Wait, Brady, let me ask you this. How do you like Rocky?
Okay. Let's not go there. Anyway.
She hasn't seen Rocky because she's crazy.
Anyways, and then the Big Short and Me and Earl and the Dying Girl are on my honorable mentions. They did not make it into my top 10. But what did is my number 10 movie of the year, Spotlight. Now, Spotlight might win Best Picture this year. It is a It is a great film. I loved the direction of this movie. I loved the story that it told. It's about the Boston Globe reporters who uncovered the
Catholic sex scandal?
Yes, the scandal. That's the word I couldn't remember. The scandal that happened in the Catholic Church. And the way that they take these characters' lives and their jobs and they show it. And it's the best representation of investigative journalism that I've seen in film. And I just think it was really important for this story to be told. And I think it did a great job with that. And I loved Spotlight. Ashley, however, saw Spotlight and didn't care for it, which blows my mind because this was a movie that I thought for sure Ashley would love. And I'm rarely mistaken on that.
Okay, look, this movie made for me. It really was. I should have loved it. I don't know what it was about it. It didn't grab me like a lot of the other movies this year did. I was sitting there watching it and I was like, oh, nice editing. It's very well paced, very well acted, especially by Mark Ruffalo. But I don't know what it was. It just didn't grab me. Maybe it's because journalism, I don't know. Journalism's really not my thing. And like a movie about that, I thought it would be so interesting. And I just felt like it was kind of repetitive. And I don't know. I don't know what it was about it. It was a brilliant film for like filmmaking and everything like that. And did the screenplay get nominated?
I think so.
Because I thought that, it was fine. I just thought it was a little dull, to be honest.
Well, sometimes that happens, and all films are subjective, and that's one of the best things about them, to have differing opinions and to be able to discuss those opinions, which is one of the reasons that we have this show. Mm-hmm. So,
but if it wins Best Picture, I'm gonna be mad.
Anyways, but I think it was a great film, and that is why it was my number 10. And Ashley, maybe that'll just be one of those movies that forever everyone talks about how great it was, and you're just one of the ones who didn't feel the same way.
Yeah.
Now, number 9, I believe was in Ashley's honorable mentions, and that is Room. Room had the best performance of the year by a female actress in Brie Larson. She was incredible. She's always incredible. We've talked about her when we discussed Short Term 12. And she makes this movie. But however, this movie is about and from the perspective of her son. It's about her and her son, and the way that she came to have her son was she was kidnapped and kept in a room And the man, did some terrible things, but she got her son out of that, and her son actually helps her escape. And the movie is about how they cope after that, and how they go through this, how they went through this horrible, the beginning of this little boy's life was just in this one room, and his discovery after that. And I thought it was so well directed in the way that when they're in the room, it makes you feel claustrophobic. And when he gets out, just the lightness and the openness, and you feel free with him, and you also feel a little uneasy because of the atmosphere and the environment that he's put in afterwards, because it's scary not knowing anything about the world and then being thrown into it. And the little boy, Jacob Tremblay, did such a great job. And he won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Young Actor. And
how cute was that speech? It was adorable.
He is the cutest little boy, and he did such a great job in this movie. And it's my number 9 because I just couldn't leave it off my list.
I really, really loved Room. I really did. I thought it was fantastic. When I first saw it, I'm not a big fan of that directing style with the handheld kind of close up to your face, like the whole movie. I'm not a fan of it, but the more I thought about it for this film, the more it worked. And it doesn't bother me anymore when I think back about the film. It was beautifully shot, honestly. And I just got to get that bias out of my head with that kind of style and everything. But I honestly, we said about Brie Larson, we said she should be an A-list actress right now. And I think that this is going to bring her into that. And she's already gotten the Oscar nomination. She'll probably win. And I'm so happy about that. And you are so right about Jacob Tremblay. He's fantastic in this movie. I hope he's not one of those young actors that just disappears. Like that kid from Looper. Where did that kid go? He was so great in Looper. But yeah, like I said, you said it all, really. I love Room. I thought the screenplay was fantastic. It was really well written, and well realized from the book. I read like the first chapter of the book because I wanted to see kind of how it was, and it's really well adapted.
And that's why it was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. Which we will talk about when we get to our Oscar portion of the show today. Now, my number 8 is actually the same as Ashley's number 8. My number 8 is Star Wars The Force Awakens. When I originally was looking at my list, I thought it was going to be much higher up. But as I was going through, personally, these other movies just hit me more. Because the way I look at it, this is like my list. So these are the movies that I enjoyed the most, that I got the most out of. And so I don't just look at the quality of the film when I'm looking and making my list. I look at how much I enjoyed the film and what it did for me. And so Star Wars The Force Awakens really was such a fun, incredible experience at the movies, and everyone should see it in theaters, which you still have the chance to, because it's still going strong at the box office, and everyone needs to go see it. It's had many repeat viewings.
I've seen it 3 times.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And like Ashley and I pretty much said everything about it. I will say that I love Kylo Ren's character.
Adam Driver.
Yes, Adam Driver is amazing as Kylo Ren, as this kind of whiny villain, but with more depth than you're used to seeing from villains typically. Mm-hmm. He has much more to his story, and I'm very excited to learn more about it as we go into the next 2 films.
Me too. And if you have not seen the Undercover Boss skit that SNL did with Adam Driver, oh my gosh, go watch it. It is hilarious.
It is so funny. It's Adam Driver as Kylo Ren going undercover as Matt.
The technician.
Hi, I'm Matt. He's like a technician on the Star Killer base, and it is so
hilarious.
Funny. Everybody should definitely go watch it. Now, my number 7 is Sicario. And Sicario is directed by one of my favorite directors, Denis Villeneuve. And he'll be directing the Blade Runner sequel soon with Ryan Gosling. That'll be, I think that's supposed to start filming in June or July, one of those.
I think it's July.
Yeah, so that'll be, I cannot wait to see what he does in that world. But Sicario was definitely we've talked about it in depth on the Cinema Twins before, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but it's definitely like my least favorite out of Denis Villeneuve's films that I've seen, but it still grabbed me so much. I'm sad that Benicio del Toro's not getting more
award nominations.
Yes, not getting more recognition. That was the word. More recognition for what he did in the film, because it was so good. But like we've talked about Sicario in depth before. So I'll move on to my number 6, which is Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, we have also talked about in depth, so won't go too much into it, but the screenplay is electric. It is amazing. I'm shocked it was not nominated. We're taking away all our Oscar portion talk and during our top 10, but it was incredible. Michael Fassbender might take the Oscar from Leonardo DiCaprio. I'd say it's going to be one of them, but he might take it because of Steve Jobs. All right, so that was our 10 through 6. Quick recap. Mine was number 10, Spotlight. Number 9, Room. Number 8, Star Wars The Force Awakens. Number 7, Sicario. And number 6, Steve Jobs.
And mine was number 10, The Big Short. 9, Mad Max Fury Road. 8, Star Wars The Force Awakens. 7, Ex Machina. And 6, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl.
All right, and now we're down to the top 5. These are the very best of the best movies of the year. Ashley, what is your 5th best movie of 2015?
Well, Brady, you just mentioned it. Sicario. That movie, it grabbed me and it did not let me go for the whole film. And I heard a lot of people saying it was slow. I don't get that. I thought Spotlight was slow.
Well, there's a difference between slow and boring. Slow is a slow burn, but it's well paced, which I think Spotlight is.
Spotlight was.
I think Sicario is as well. It's slow burn, but well paced and well realized.
But Sicario grabbed my heart in its dead cold hands and wouldn't let it go, because this is a very, like we said, we've talked about it, such an intense movie, and just, it really makes you want to take a shower, but it's just so good. So that was my number 5. And my number 4, I saw it 2 times in the theaters. I am so glad that I just got it on Blu-ray. The Martian. It was one of the best times I had at the theaters all year. We also did an episode on The Martian. It was actually our first episode, if anybody wants to go check that out. Plugs, and more plugs. It was just so great. It was fun. It was probably the second funnest, the second most fun movie this year, right behind Star Wars, just because Star Wars has that nostalgia and all that. But it was just a great movie. The screenplay was fantastic, written by Drew Goddard. I loved it. So yeah, The Martian is my number 4. And my number 3, actually, it was your, I believe, 6. My number 3 is Steve Jobs, because Aaron Sorkin, he is a freight train of a screenwriter. He just goes in there and he writes his little heart out, and it gets me every single time. There is not a movie I have seen written by Aaron Sorkin that I have not clung to and loved so much. It's unbelievably fast-paced, and nothing really happens. I mean, things happen, obviously, but you're just going through it and just following this guy, and I loved the way it was shot and everything. It was just a fantastic movie.
I agree. And so, if you didn't see it in theaters, because Steve Jobs wasn't in theaters very long, definitely check it out when it comes to Redbox or Netflix, or take the leap and buy it, because I know I'll be buying it.
I'll probably buy like 6 copies, just cause. Hand them out to people on the street just so people can see this movie.
All right. What's your number 2, Ashley?
My number 2 is The Hateful Eight. We saw it on Christmas. We both loved it. I cannot understand why it would not get nominated for Best Screenplay. Why the what was I about to say? Why the critical reception wasn't as good for this one. I loved it, and all the critics were like, it's not Tarantino's best. I was just actually on another podcast called Top 5 Saturday Lives. If y'all want to go check that out, it's on YouTube with some great other guys who love talking about movies, Chase Lee and Brian Sudfield. They're awesome, and I was on there, and it was my number 2, Tarantino of all time. I loved The Hateful Eight, and there's only one movie that really could beat it out. So, yeah.
That's true. I definitely agree. All right. And now now I'll go into my 5 through 2. Similar-ish. I have a few that were in your 10 through 6, actually. My number 5 is The Martian. We've said pretty much all we can say about The Martian. Just a really great, fun movie. And a comedy, apparently, according to the Golden Globes, which is absolutely ridiculous. That movie's not a comedy. It has comedic tones.
It's funny, though.
It is funny, but it's not a comedy. It should not have been in that category.
No.
It was like they took the movies that were like second string and we're like, let's throw those in the comedy category. Joy is in the comedy category, and Joy was not a comedy in any way, shape, or form.
I wouldn't even call The Martian second string, though. Like, I loved
agree,
it.
But I mean, through the Golden Globes, through their eyes, like that's how I feel they were looking at it. They were like, well, we're not going to give it an award above like The Revenant, so we'll throw it in comedy so we can give it an award.
Well, hopefully the Oscars feel differently.
Yes. But my number 4 is actually The Revenant. Number 4. Yes, I see Ashley's face giving me some odd looks right now. The Revenant was one of the best movies I've ever seen. And like I said earlier, here's why The Revenant is number 4, which is low compared to Ashley's, which you'll find out.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But The Revenant was the most beautiful movie. It's one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. It's one of the best made movies I've ever seen. However, it is not my favorite. I didn't love it as much as I loved and enjoyed sitting in the theater and watching my 3 through 1. I loved it. I think that it should win Best Picture because I believe it is the best movie of this year. However, it's not my favorite movie of this year, so it's not up there on my list. But it is number 4, so it is one of the best of the best. Moving on to number 3, which is Ex Machina. This movie, it might be because I saw it a little more recently, but it grabbed me, and I will never forget the screenplay, the acting,
The sound design.
Yes, the eerie tone that you feel when you're in this secluded building and area in the world where you're just cut off from everything. It's incredible. Ex Machina is so great. If you haven't seen it, check it out. We've talked about it before. So, all these repeat movies that we always bring up, definitely check those out because you don't want to miss them. My number 2 is Mad Max Fury Road. Mad Max.
Wow.
Mad Max. It came out earlier in the year. And I have not been able to shake that film since I saw it. From the second Mad Max started, my jaw dropped and the action did not stop until the very end of the movie. It is the most tense, fun, entertaining, energetic movie. Like, it's so much fun to watch. And I can't wait I bought it on Blu-ray on Black Friday for super cheap. So I'll be watching this movie over and over and over again. It's one of my favorites. George Miller is a genius. At over 70 years old, this man is making these high octane movies, and it really just blows my mind. He is a genius.
He's a master.
It is action, I feel, is so difficult to direct and to capture in the right way, and I've never seen more action in a movie, and it's perfect. It's flawless, and you don't miss a thing. The way George Miller directs it, you don't miss anything. And these other directors out there are using shaky cam to throw you off and just kind of think that a lot's going on without
really nothing's happening.
Yes, without putting the effort in like George Miller did at 70. So those other action directors need to step it up because Mad Max knew what it was doing. Now for the big reveal, our number one favorite movies of 2015. Ashley, what do you got?
Well, obviously, The Revenant. I saw this movie the day it came out in a theater full of the elderly. For some reason, I don't know why it was like that, but that's just how it happened. And from the opening shot of this movie, I was mesmerized. Emmanuel Lubezki has done it again. He did it with Gravity, and then he did it with Birdman, and he did it again with The Revenant. He's going to win the Oscar for Best Cinematography. I have no doubt in my mind, and it's just unbelievable what he can do with the camera. But like I said, from the second it started, it grabbed me. I didn't let go, just like that bear with Leonardo DiCaprio. It was just visceral and unbelievably brilliant. It honestly, I told everybody this. I had a religious experience with The Revenant. I felt like I was at home. I was at home sitting in that theater, and it made me feel, cold. I was cold because that movie, the whole thing is just, gosh, I'm losing my words right now because I love this movie so much. It was just unbelievable and beautiful, and it got kind of surreal at points in the movie, which I wasn't expecting, and I just loved it. Alejandro Inarritu, you did it again. Birdman was my favorite movie last year, and I thought that Birdman was the best movie last year, which normally this doesn't happen to me, like you were saying, like, oh, it was the best, but it wasn't my favorite. But the past 2 years with Alejandro Inarritu, I do believe Birdman was the best movie of 2014, and it won Best Picture, thank goodness, and it was my favorite of last year. And this with The Revenant, I think it will win Best Picture, and it was my favorite of this year, and I loved it. Brady, what did you think about The Revenant?
I mean, I agree with everything you said completely, and it's really astonishing to listen to the genius that is Alejandro Inarritu. He knows what he's doing, he knows what he wants to do, and he carries it out with perfection. If you listen to him, I can't think of the site that did the video, but if you listen to him talk about certain scenes in The Revenant, it's incredible to listen to the mastermind behind this incredibly beautiful film. It's really amazing, and I feel privileged to get to watch his films and enjoy them. I thank him every time I see one of his movies because it's amazing what the man can do, and he's truly given us a gift with his films that I will cherish forever. All right, guys, it's time. My number one pick of 2015 is The Hateful Eight, directed by Quentin Tarantino. I am baffled that more people have not enjoyed this movie the way that Ashley and I did. I truly don't understand it. I love that Tarantino went back to the condensed story, the smaller story, the smaller venue of the film. I loved it. Seeing it in 70 millimeter was gorgeous. It was absolutely beautiful. I love what Tarantino did. The intermission was great. I think it went well with the film. I had so much fun watching this movie. I saw it on Christmas Day in a crowded theater, and it was fantastic. Just everyone howling laughing at Tarantino's incredible dialogue. He truly writes like no other. His dialogue is the most fun to listen to. It is hilarious and keeps you interested throughout the entire film, even at the slower moments. The beginning of The Hateful Eight, I will admit, is a little slow, but never boring. Just listening to Tarantino's characters talk to each other is precious. It's amazing to listen to Kurt Russell and Samuel L. Jackson and Walton Goggins in this film. Walton Goggins
he was such a standout.
Yes,
he was so good.
He impressed me so much in that movie. His character didn't love until the end. What I love about this movie is that all these characters, I mean, the title really says it all. The Hateful Eight. They are hateful. They are crude. They are bad people altogether. And you know what? I love it. I love watching these characters. It kind of takes me to a different place because I'm lucky enough to where, I haven't surrounded myself with too many hateful people. So maybe sometimes I want to go to the movies and watch them fight with each other. And it's amazing. Especially, I love Tarantino's stylized violence. I love the way he does it. I think it's amazing. Some people find it to be too much. I'm just not one of those people. Ashley, what do you want to say about The Hateful Eight? Anything else?
I loved it so much. Like you said, I really don't understand what people's problem was with it. Like, I thought it was gorgeous. I loved the choice that he made to shoot it in 70 millimeter because of the wide viewing, and it was just gorgeous. I loved the dialogue. I loved every single character, whether they were hateful or not, and they were just so great. Walton Goggins, I'm gonna keep an eye on him now. Because when he first showed up, like, whenever I was watching all the trailers, I was like, oh, huge star, huge star, huge star. Who's that? And now I'm like...
He was in Django very briefly.
I knew he was in Django.
He's on the show Justified.
Oh. Well, he's...
A revelation has happened.
Yeah. Still, though, I was like, who's that? And then coming out of the movie, I was like, I'm going to keep an eye on him because he was great. And
he knew how to work with Tarantino's dialogue and with the character that Tarantino wrote.
It was fantastic. We really can't say any more about The Hateful Eight because it's unbelievable. It's something you've got to experience for yourself. And I think with time, people are going to warm up to it more. I think they're going to realize how timeless these characters actually are going to be.
Yes, I think so too. I definitely agree because what I hear from a lot of people is that, oh, it wasn't as good as Tarantino's other movies, but then they don't say anything else about it. Like, no one's really discussed it in a greater length for me to understand why it's not resonating with the audience and with critics the way Django and some of his other films did. But it is personally one of my favorite of his. I like the contained stories. That's why Reservoir Dogs is one of my favorites. I love that Tarantino went back to that. His first film, Reservoir Dogs, was that contained storyline with these crazy characters, and he went to that with The Hateful Eight, and it was incredible, and I cannot wait to see what Tarantino does next.
Same here. I love it.
All right, we're going to move on to some Oscar talk here. Which is one of our favorite things to talk about, clearly, as we littered it all through our top 10 list. I hope you enjoyed that. We certainly enjoyed putting the list together and just reminiscing about some of our favorite films of the year. Now, I'm going to run through some of the nominations for this year's 2016 Oscars. Just the big categories that we have some things to say about. All right, for Best Actress in a Supporting Role, we have Jennifer Jason Leigh for The Hateful Eight, Rooney Mara for Carol, Rachel McAdams in Spotlight, Alicia Vikander in The Danish Girl, and Kate Winslet in Steve Jobs. Ashley, what stands out to you here?
Kate Winslet. She blew me away in Steve Jobs. Her character, the movie wouldn't have been the same without her there as that rock. And her performance was unbelievable. The second I stepped out of the movie, I was like, Kate Winslet's going to win the Oscar. However, I must say, I have not seen Carol. I have not seen The Danish Girl. I don't understand why Rachel McAdams is on this list, to be honest.
I disagree.
I think that... Okay, this is a long shot, but I think that, oh my gosh, what is her name? And oh my goodness.
Well, while you're trying to think of
sorry.
it, I think that Rachel McAdams does deserve the nomination. I think she did a great job portraying her character in Spotlight. I think it was a great performance matched with the great directing and the great performances of the ensemble cast. I think the reason you're having a hard time seeing it is because it's such an ensemble piece that it's hard to look at one performance aside from Mark Ruffalo's, because Mark Ruffalo was great. But it's harder to look at just Rachel McAdams and say, oh, well, she was standout because it was such an ensemble piece for the cast to work together.
It was Rachel Cook, but she would be leading actress. So for me and her on The Dying Girl.
Oh, okay. I was like, who's that? Because that's the name of a girl we went to high school with.
Oh yeah, that
So
is weird.
I was like, who is that?
Yeah. She was. Oh God, that's not her name. Olivia Cook. Olivia Cook. Sorry, Rachel. Olivia Cook for Me and Her on the Dying Girl. I thought that she was great, but actually she probably would have been leading, I think. But anyways, I don't know. Spotlight obviously didn't hit me.
Well, for best actor in a supporting role, we have Christian Bale for The Big Short, Tom Hardy for The Revenant, Mark Ruffalo for Spotlight, Mark Rylance for Bridge of Spies, and Sylvester Stallone for Creed. Now, I will come out right off the bat and say that I think this is the most stacked category of the Oscars this year. Ashley, what do you think?
I agree. I would agree had I seen Creed, Bridge of Spies, or okay, yeah, that's it. Oh, just Creed and Bridge of Spies. Okay, well, I guess it's not that bad. But honestly, as much as I have been hating on Spotlight right now, I really hope Mark Ruffalo wins. He was my favorite part of Spotlight, and I thought he really stood out in that stacked ensemble cast, like you were just talking about. I really appreciated his performance, and while I would love to see Tom Hardy walk away with it too, I don't know, there's just something about Mark Ruffalo in that movie that just hit me in a way. Even though Tom Hardy killed it in The Revenant, he was also obviously fantastic.
You know, I agree. I wouldn't be mad with any of these choices. I haven't seen Bridge of Spies, but I've heard Mark Rylance is the standout in that film. I agree that Mark Ruffalo was definitely the standout in the ensemble cast of Spotlight, just because I think his character had a little more to do. A little more active dialogue, which he pulled off very well, and so I think that he definitely deserves this nomination, 100%. And if he gets the win, I think he deserves that as well. Tom Hardy, though, is the one that I'm really looking at, because I thought that his performance in The Revenant was so great that it was right up there with Leonardo DiCaprio's performance, if not better. He might have outshined Leonardo DiCaprio a little bit in this film, which I think might hurt DiCaprio's chances of the Oscar because of how great Tom Hardy was in the movie as this villainous character.
I get people saying that, I understand, but honestly, we saw it with Martin Scorsese in the 2007 Oscars, I believe, when with The Departed, he won for The Departed, which I think he totally deserved anyways, but a lot of people say that I don't know, it was kind of like a sorry, you didn't win for all the other times we've nominated you, and I honestly think that might be what happens with Leonardo DiCaprio in this movie, because I don't think that The Revenant's his best performance. I think The Wolf of Wall Street was his best performance.
I do as well. I 100% agree with what you're saying, that when Martin Scorsese won for Best Director for The Departed. Just wanted to make that clear, just in case someone thought you were talking about Leonardo DiCaprio, because he is in The Departed.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, but Martin Scorsese won Best Director for The Departed, and everyone thought that it was kind of like, yes, obviously you did a fantastic job directing The Departed, but we're also giving you this Oscar because of the amazing movies that you've made before this that you didn't win for. And so I could definitely see how DiCaprio would win for The Revenant this year because of that, because I agree The Wolf of Wall Street has been his best performance, but the lengths that he went to, this man gives 100% every time, and we will talk more about him when we get to the leading role category, but right now we're going to talk about the actresses in a leading role. And for this we have Cate Blanchett for Carol, Brie Larson for Room, Jennifer Lawrence in Joy, Charlotte Rampling in 45 Years, and Saoirse Ronan in Brooklyn. Ashley, I can imagine you probably don't have a lot to say about this category, considering you've only seen Room.
Brie Larson rocks. I really hope she wins.
Good job, Ashley. I actually agree with that exactly. Brie Larson, I definitely think, actually, I should go ahead and say I've only seen 3 of these films. I haven't seen 45 Years or Carol. I plan on seeing Carol definitely before the Oscars. However, I think this is Brie Larson's year. if it goes to Cate Blanchett, I'll be a little upset just because I feel like the Oscars love her. Every time she does something, they're just like, here you go. I mean, she's a top-notch actress. She's incredible. But I really think Brie Larson deserves it this year for what she did in Room. The emotion that she had to put forth onto this screen is incredible. Saoirse Ronan for Brooklyn would be my number 2, my runner-up. I loved Brooklyn. A lot of people thought it was slow, I guess, but I loved it. I thought it was a great little love story, and a story about what you have to do and like how you have to cope when you leave your home, and on such a large scale that Brooklyn was. I thought it was such a fantastic performance by Saoirse Ronan. Jennifer Lawrence, I love her. She's one of my favorite actresses. However, I can say I don't completely understand why she's on here, but that might just, her performance was incredible, and I guess the performance deserves the nomination, but the movie just didn't hit with me right, so I feel like maybe that might be hampering my judgment on her performance, which is no fault of hers. But we will move on to actor in a leading role, which we have Bryan Cranston in Trumbo, Matt Damon in The Martian, Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant, Michael Fassbender for Steve Jobs, and Eddie Redmayne in The Danish Girl. Ashley, why don't you lead us off with this one?
Honestly, like I was just saying, I think it's DiCaprio's year. Even though I would not be mad with Michael Fassbender. I have not seen Trumbo or The Danish Girl, but I think I've heard that like Trumbo, it was kind of a surprise that Bryan Cranston got in there, but I think he's a great actor, so good for him. I haven't seen the movie, want to soon. Eddie Redmayne, I've heard some stirrings about him, but it's really hard to hit that back to back for actors. Like
It really is, especially in the same category. And I think that from what I've been hearing and from the buzz and everything, I would say it's a two-man race between DiCaprio and Fassbender.
I'm really glad that Matt Damon was in there, though, because he carried that film.
Me too. You really have to be a great actor to carry a film where you're on a planet by yourself.
Yeah, so I'm glad Matt Damon's in there. I think it's DiCaprio's year. I hope it's DiCaprio's year. I think he really deserves it. So, but however, if Michael Fassbender takes it, I'd be just as happy because I loved Steve Jobs and I loved Michael Fassbender. He didn't look anything like the guy, and I believed 10,000% that it was him. It was so great.
I agree. Michael Fassbender, I would not be upset at all if he took it from Leonardo DiCaprio because, honestly, I feel like DiCaprio, you're going to get one eventually. If not this year, maybe for Devil in the White City, which Martin Scorsese is directing, and Leonardo DiCaprio will be playing a serial killer. So, yes, match made in heaven. We'll see how that goes. All right, so for Best Picture, we have The Big Short, Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Mad Max, Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Room, and Spotlight. Ashley, what do you think of the nominations for Best Picture this year?
I have never been more shocked and I have never been more happy than to see Mad Max in this category. A few of our friends were like, "Oh, do you think Mad Max will get nominated for Best Picture?" And I said, there is no way. There's no way that is happening. And then when I was watching the nominations and that came up, I was so excited. I think I literally jumped for joy. I was so excited because I loved Mad Max. I did not think that the Academy would appreciate it the way that they have, and I was shocked that they did.
Yes, the Academy, which, by the way, 93% are white men over the age of 60. So, so I am shocked that Mad Max Fury Road got in there.
It was just so great. I'm glad Room got in there. Brooklyn, I'm glad got in there. Some of these smaller films, you know what I mean? Even though I haven't seen Brooklyn yet. A little surprised to see Bridge of Spies there. I didn't expect that at all. I would have rather seen something like Ex Machina get in there over that, or, Meet Her on the Dying Girl, or Sicario or whatever. I'm a big fan of most of these movies, so I thought that they pretty much hit the nail on the head, excluding Ex Machina.
Yeah, I think the list is really great. We didn't mention, but I'm really glad that Ex Machina was nominated for screenplay, as well as Sicario, which we knew. We said this when we talked about Sicario, that it would be nominated for Best Cinematography, even though Roger Deakins is probably going to be beat out this year by Emmanuel Lubezki.
You know what makes me real mad, though? That I just thought about? That Denis Villeneuve was not nominated for Best Director.
Yeah, when they have those 5 slots, it's really difficult.
Like, even though I said I liked Adam McKay, like, yeah, I liked Adam McKay, but he's not Denis Villeneuve.
Yes, I definitely would have put Denis Villeneuve in there before Adam McKay as well. I'm, like you said, same sentiment with Mad Max Fury Road. I'm ecstatic and shocked. The same amount ecstatic and shocked that it got in there, but I could not be happier with it. It won't win, but
The Revenant.
I think it'll go to The Revenant or Spotlight. But
I really want it to be The Revenant. This is like the same thing that it was with me last year with Birdman and Boyhood. Wasn't a fan of Boyhood. Not a huge fan of Spotlight. I acknowledge it was a brilliant film, but not my favorite of the year. And I don't think it was the best of the year. I think The Revenant was the best film. I'm a little worried because of a little bit of the surreal qualities that The Revenant had, but honestly, I think the Academy's eating it up right now. And I ate it up. I loved it. I think The Revenant deserves to win, and I think that it will win.
I hope The Revenant wins. However, it has been a long time since the same kind of producer, I guess, won for best, or the same director's movie won 2 years in a row for Best Picture.
I think he could do it, though, because The Revenant and Birdman, they were both so unbelievably they were films. They were meant to be experienced. So shut up, Brady. But it was just, I loved those movies, and I really think The Revenant's gonna take it. And if not The Revenant, I would honestly love to see Mad Max get it if some miracle happened.
I agree. I mean, obviously we did our top 10 list, so my favorites, but the shocker was that The Big Short actually won at, what was the
BFA.
I
think it's the BFAs.
I thought it was the producers.
I have no idea, honestly.
Anyways, The Big Short won at a ceremony which usually indicates,
Best
for
Picture.
the most part, what the Best Picture at the Oscars is going to be, and they gave it to The Big Short. I will be quite disappointed if The Big Short wins.
I don't think there's a chance.
I think that The Revenant, I think that plenty of these films were better than The Big Short.
I think Ex Machina was better than The Big Short, and it should be in there.
I definitely agree. I would have rather seen Ex Machina in there than The Big Short. But, we're both pulling for The Revenant, and we'll see how it comes out. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening for our first night back here. This Thursdays at 7. Should have mentioned that. That is going to be our new time this semester. Thursdays at 7 o'clock p.m. Be sure to tune in every week for the Cinema Twins. Be sure to like our Facebook page, the Cinema Twins, WGUR 95.3 The Noise, and our Instagram, which is the Cinema Twins, and YouTube, the Cinema Twins.
YouTube, very important.
Yes, go listen to us on YouTube, get us a bunch of views, subscribe, tell your friends, tell people who aren't your friends, just, run up to people on the street, be like, you know what you should do? Listen to the Cinema Twins, because they're awesome. Thank you so much. We hope everyone has a great semester, and we look forward to talking movies with you.